Hello guys, Pete here again. Welcome to Airbrushing Tips and Tricks episode 5, Airbrush and Compressor Setup. Just want to say a quick, at the start of the video, this is going to be the last sort of version of this airbrushing tips and tricks sort of videos, where like I show you how to clean your airbrush, set up your airbrush, etc. I can wait to show you guys. So from episode 6 onwards to however far along this series lasts, it is going to be tutorials from now on after this video. So episode 6 upwards is going to be tutorials like how to paint like rocks, ice effect, things like that, concrete, just anything that I know, just to sort of show you like what to do with an airbrush. So anyway, without further ado, let's get down to this last video of this sort of type for airbrushing tips and tricks. So like I say guys, and I've obviously showed in the past, my compressor is pretty small. It's not the biggest compressor in the world, and it is actually nail art airbrush compressor, etc. But other than that, don't let it fool you, it is an amazing airbrush. But like I say, I have had my sort of troubles over times with it, and I'm starting to learn from that more and more now. So basically, first thing to do, obviously, is hook it up with any electrical cables or anything you need to do with that. But then the next thing is hoses. A lot of people, I don't know if they're hoses like mine's. You can see, I know there's like a slight little difference with the two ends. Obviously, this one's my airbrush end, that's my compressor end, thanks to the fact of it having the bend in it compared to the airbrush end. The holes are just slightly different in size, which can mean a lot compared to getting the right air pressure to come out, and it can be quite daunting and annoying if you don't get the right amount of air pressure coming out your compressor to help get your models like spray painted, etc., whatever you do with your airbrush anyway. But just a little tip, once you are hooking it on, is just simply wind it down, or screw it down as far as it goes, and just barely tighten it up. Once it starts gripping, once it starts getting that little bit of grip, leave it at that. So obviously the air isn't having to struggle to get through so much, and there isn't all that pressure pushing down on it. Because I do feel there is a sort of blockage in between here when it is too far down. So if it's just barely hand tightened down, then you're perfectly fine. Another thing is as well, make sure your hose is completely straightened out. Then there's nothing worse than with any sort of hose, like a water hose, airbrush hose. You know the sort of feeling, you get a little kink in your cable, it's going to add more pressure, and then you're going to lose pressure, etc. So have a perfectly straightened out cable. I don't know if most users are like me. My airbrush is, well, it obviously sits on the table, but the cable hangs over the side of my desk or table or whatever I'm using, so it's got a completely straight long length. I do admit when I wind it up, I sort of wind it around my hand, which is sort of maybe a bad thing to do, but obviously as long as it's straightened out, give it a little stretch if you need to before setting up your airbrush. Now the same thing with your airbrush as when you did your compressor. Just simply barely hand tighten it on. Obviously by now your airbrush is completely set up with having being like plugged in, etc. So you can obviously try and put a couple of scooshes through, see if you're getting the right air pressure. If you need to tighten up, and go from there. So that way you know if it is needing tightened, needing loosened before you put any paint in. You can put water in to test if you do like to do that with your airbrush, test some water in it to see if it is running through. Now last thing that I found as well is with the tips, your nozzles should I say, you can lose a lot of pressure there as well. So basically what I like to do is completely take it off, even if you want to, if your airbrush is like mine's, just even loosen off like your sort of tip area, just a tiny wee tad, because I already have, and mine is just hand tightened on. If you have like a two-part nozzle like I do, simply put them back on one by one, just like with attaching the hoses on to the compressor into the airbrush, just till it catches, and then same again, just till it catches. And like I say, just run some air through it, run some water through it, whatever you want. If you feel that's giving out enough spray, then perfect. If it's not, you can tighten up a bit more until you feel, because I know maybe at times the paint or the water can come out of your nozzles, which is a bit annoying because that shows that you're losing the pressure as well. So all that done, your airbrush should be completely set up and ready to let you paint whatever you want to paint. And you shouldn't have any problems with air pressure or losing of pressure, it should be running perfectly fine. If not, like I say, just redo all the steps, just tighten things up, loosen things off. It takes minutes to do, and it can obviously benefit the fact of you having a perfect sort of paint session if you want. So anyway guys, this has been Airbrushing Tips and Tricks episode 5, Airbrush and Compressor Setup. If you have enjoyed this video, please leave it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button for more videos like this in the future guys, and I'll see you next time.